FSD is a pretty amazing piece of software. It's not as huge as it used to be. It's gotten a lot more compact, a lot more efficient, and runs kind of by itself, even codes kind of by itself. But what happens when the competition swoops in and just steals it, just copies it, just walks away with it, puts it on their vehicles, and puts Tesla out of business by making it better and cheaper? That's what we're going to discuss, because I don't think it's possible. So I went ahead and found somebody who has been programming for just 3 or 4 decades now, so he might have some insights that I couldn't possibly. John Twig is joining us. I'm Brian. Welcome to Future Oza. So John, I got this comment the other day saying China's going to just copy it. They're just going to take a copy of FSD, put it on their cars. Bob's your uncle. They've got FSD, and because it's China, they can manufacture all the bibs and bobs around it even cheaper. They will be the dominant force. And I say to that, I don't think that's how it works. I don't think that's how modern software is on this scale. What says you?
It's making my head hurt to think about it. The list of things they would have to do or have to make it work. First of all, Tesla have got dedicated hardware. Mm-hmm. It's a particular FSD chip. So they're going to have to get some of those from somewhere. So, and as we've seen, it's like with Elon saying we put all our patents out. People can copy. But Tesla are another generation on before anybody else even begins to use those patents. So the latest hardware chips are not going to be available to anybody else. They might be able to have a generic one that runs something like 10 years ago. It needs the FSD cameras. As we've said, if the OEMs want to run FSD, they can't just plug it in. They've got the whole cycle of designing new models with the cameras in, everything integrated. I can't imagine how an OEM, I mean, this is where I differ with a lot of people, that people say, oh, the OEMs will just license FSD. I can't quite work out how it works, because FSD is integrated with the rest of the car. It applies the brakes. It applies the steering. It needs the cameras for all the input. The way I think more radically is what they would have to do to even license FSD with cooperation from Tesla, as opposed to stealing it and having no cooperation, is actually license a full unboxed kit.
The whole shebang.
Well, what they would do is they could put their own top on, effectively skin it to make it look whatever color, whatever shape. But the cameras, the hardware, the Ethernet technology they use, the whole thing could actually be a kit. I struggle to see how an OEM could make it work well without a lot of the Tesla hardware, because it's all integrated.
It is all integrated. So what I'm saying is I'm not Coca-Cola, but I'm going to beat them because I stole the software that runs their Coca-Cola freestyle machines. Mm-hmm. And you're saying, right, but you don't have a freestyle machine. No. And even if you did, the freestyle machine is still a cloud-based machine that, so it can't do the ordering. It can't do the logistics part of it.
But it's also the manufacturing, because Tesla's got, they say the product is the manufacturing in the end. They're going to have to produce Tesla-like cars with the AI chip, with the cameras, to a cost that makes sense for somebody to buy them, when Tesla can make them for half the price.
So I could buy a processing chip, but to get the capacity that Tesla's purpose-built chip does, what I would have to do is build something that's significantly more expensive, that has a lot of other features that wouldn't even be needed. I'd have to overbuild it for it to run the specific thing that this code needs to run. So there's no cost savings there. But
so the only thing I can imagine is if in 20 years' time, software has moved on so far and hardware has moved on so far that they could run a legacy version of it that was 10 or 15 years old. Maybe that's a possibility. But I can't see how anybody could do anything within.
Well, and the hardware is part of it. You can get the cameras. The cameras are off-the-shelf cameras. The chip is not off the shelf. But let's say you could get a chip that could do it. You still don't have the cloud aspect. No. It still needs to phone home
Yeah.
And even if you managed to get all of those things, all you did was get a version that's still supervised, that's still not the full package. You'd never get the full package.
You'd never
So
catch up.
you'd never catch up. I had a viewer ask me the other day, when AGI is achieved, does the training data advantage remain? Do you still need billions of miles of training data when you have AGI? And my thought on that was, what are we considering AGI? If it's just human level intelligence, you know how many hours of driving data you have in your head before you ever get behind the wheel? You have every show or movie you've ever seen that involves driving. You have every ride you've ever taken in anything that was motorized and a lot of things that weren't. You have a lot of hours of understanding the physics of the world in motion before you get there. And I think that advantage I think you would still need to train the heck out of them with real data.
I suspect what you'd actually do is you'd train the AGI up in the big training centers, install it into an AI 7 chip, whatever it is, on whatever machine, and then it could learn on top. But you need that base. I mean, when a baby is born, it's got those millions of years of evolution to get to that point that you can then install things on top of. And I think you'd be in a similar situation. You'd have to prepare them
Yes,
in
it
some
would.
way.
It would need all of that. And I'm just not convinced that even the best, I can see a time in 20 years where a high school science team says, well, for our senior project this year, the group of us are going to write self-driving code. And what they'll do is they'll grab modules that are available from a public repository and piece them all together, just like we see now with you can build a robot that can balance. They're not writing the code that makes it balance. They're using available code, and a lot of things that used to be impossible are now quite easy. We were talking about NVIDIA a little bit, and NVIDIA has this little palm-sized uh, AI compute device you can buy that uses 25 watts and has 70 tops of compute. That's like the world's fastest supercomputer from 20 years ago, running on 25 watts. And you can use it to train your own LLM. You can use it to create virtual agents. It can do all kinds of things. And it's $250, which is, a tremendous savings and opportunity.
I think the only thing we can say is that we don't know.
We don't know.
The
But
hardware is moving extremely quickly. We can probably guess where the hardware is going. We might end up with 100 times improvement in performance in 5 years' time or so. But the software and the training data and where that gets to, and I'm still not convinced what AGI actually is.
right.
Because
I
at the moment we're actually training domain specific all the time. You've got to have some basic rules, some basic structure. Tesla's FSD, or full self-doing, as I call it in Optimus, is being trained in a specific domain. It's not just going to learn random things in the same way as a human can yet, but we might be on the edge. And when that happens, I haven't got a clue. Could be a year,
yeah,
it could be 10 years. It could, who knows?
it's for me in compute, when something is beyond the horizon, I don't like to put a time on it because it is unknown and unknowable. And I think that's the big thing. To summarize though,
Yeah, there's actually a danger here that, and I've seen people talking about, we've got super intelligence already within a specific domain, whether it's playing Go or driving the car or whatever else. They're already getting better than humans. But in the adaptability to random different problem solving situations, they're not very good at all as yet. So when that breakthrough happens, if it happens, well, that's why Elon says we need to make sure they're telling the truth. We need to train for truth. We need to make sure they're aware. We need Neuralink to talk to them. We don't want them to go off and do their own thing without us. Interesting times, as they say.
these are interesting times. So to summarize, the risk of a competitor getting their hands on the code for FSD and being able to turn that into something useful seems quite low. We do know that there was a company that stole Tesla's old version of autopilot or whichever version it was. And even if they could get that to work, all they've got is an old version that can't do a lot of the things you'd want it to. And I don't know how you would, I don't know. This code was written by the AI. It is an end-to-end neural net. Can a human even get into that code to see how it works to make changes?
Oh no, not to make changes. What they sometimes do with the neural network is run them in a debugging mode. It runs extremely slowly, but you can actually measure all the outputs that are happening at all the nodes and different things. But they don't quite know. We don't even really understand how that network grows and what defines it. We put the input data in and we tag it with that's the right answer and that's the wrong one. And then it starts to reproduce that. But the mathematics, and it's hugely complicated. And when you said perhaps those students will be able to pick up modules from different places, there aren't modules in this end to end.
Oh, sure. Well, it wouldn't be end to end. No, but it could be running on something that is so overpowered that it doesn't need them. You know, if you look at the you can buy a video game controller that contains every Atari game ever made, and the chip that's in it is way overpowered for what it needs. But it's the cheapest chip we could get because overpowered is all it is. And it's pretty clear that while Moore's law may have slowed, we're not quite at the end of it just yet.
And there is another angle to this, that it is actually the manufacturing probably that's going to be Tesla's greatest benefit of both cars, Cybercabs, and Optimus, that they can produce them at half the price or less of anybody else. So, yeah, even if they copy the software in 5 years' time, they haven't got the hardware to compete with Tesla.
Yes. And, you saw my series on the Cybercab. It's crazy to think that I have a choice between, if I could purchase a Waymo, which you cannot, but let's say I could, am I going to spend $100,000 on that versus 25 to 50,000 on a Cybercab? Early edition is not going to be 25,000. The engineers did not give me a price, but they said, well, and early days, you pay the premium. So even if it's only half the price, it is purpose built for it. It is going to last twice as long as that Hyundai that they're making. And to clarify, someone said, they're using Jaguars, LOL. Right, today. Jaguar's not in production at the moment. They're taking a gap year. The contract that was signed is with Hyundai. Hyundai will be making the 5th gen of Waymo vehicles. And the 6th gen at this point looks like it's going to be Zeekr. I don't know how that will work in terms of importing vehicles from China, but doesn't really matter. I'm sure Waymo has some idea what they're doing. I'm not confident they have all the idea what they're doing, but that's for them to sort out. So the manufacturing aspect can't be overstated.
And with Optimus starting, the manufacturing costs will go down even more. So the only viable competition is probably Chinese, with Chinese humanoid robots and low labor costs. So what might come from there, who knows? But yeah, OEMs over here, I think they've got pretty much zero chance of competing.
I think what they're banking on is protectionist policies that will only buy them time, but not save them. So guys, what did we miss? What did we misunderstand? Help me understand what I didn't get right about software. If it was basic we were talking about, you could read the code and replace the parts you don't like. This is not. This is end to end. This is robo gibberish as far as I understand. But I feel that way about everything since, what did I take? Pascal? Yeah. So that was super helpful. Everybody else, like, subscribe, do what you got to do. Stay tuned and juicy. And I cannot wait to hear from you clever robots when I trick John into coming back and sharing his wisdom once again.